Hello there, good evening. You chose right tuning into Rwanda television news tonight. We hope you do had yourselves a great start to your week. And now, this is what is coming up on edition tonight. On Monday, the Conference of Chairpersons of Standing Committees in the Parliamentary Chamber of Deputies started the consideration of the draft revision of the Constitution of the Republic of Rwanda of 2003, revised in 2015. The government of Rwanda has announced that none of the 70 Rwandans in Sudan was infected by the fighting that has continued to escalate in the country. I am very glad, and it's my great pleasure having your company tonight. Coming to you straight from the heart of Africa, Kigali. My name is Sam Kalisa, and as we started off tonight, on Monday, the Conference of Chairpersons of Standing Committees in the Parliamentary Chamber of Deputies started the consideration of the draft revision of the Constitution of the Republic of Rwanda of 2003 that was revised in 2015. The constitutional amendment was initiated by the President of the Republic. The amendments allow the synchronization of the dates of deputies and presidential elections, and they are slated for August 2024. The Minister of Justice, Dr. Ugira Shebuja Emmanuel, demonstrates the importance of synchronizing the deputies and presidential elections.
Guhuza umunsi w'amatora yombi agakorerwa rimwe bifite akamaro kanini ku gihugu cyacu.
Synchronizing the dates of both elections, it has two major importance to our country. First is the deduction of time spent in voting, because the synchronization of the deputies and presidential elections will lead to the same time preparation. Second, it will reduce the budget spent on elections, as it will be done at the same time. So for these amendments needed to be implemented, the articles of the Constitution to be changed, as included in the revised draft provided to you.
Among other things, the constitutional amendment is expected to close the gap that has been seen in different articles, hence making on providing enough clarity for the executors. Earlier today, I spoke to Dr. Tom Mulisa, a legal expert, to shed more light on this constitutional amendment. I started by asking him the legal implications of these reforms following the other reform that was made in 2015.
Amending the Constitution is part of society.
Yes.
Constitutions are living instruments. So constitutions are living instruments. This means that whenever people's lives change or whenever they need to move a direction, a constitution can always be amended.
Right.
Even in the so-called democracies, we have had quite a number of amendments. We have had more than 24 in France. We have had more than 27 in the US. And we cannot complain just because we had one in 2003. We had a constitution in 2003 and only amended in 2015. So we could be talking about a second amendment. So we've had constitutions being amended all the time because constitutions are not static. We say that in constitutional law, we say that a constitution is a living instrument.
Yes.
So whenever people's lives change and whenever they move a different direction, a constitution can always be amended to suit what is there at that time. Right. So amending a constitution is part of constitutional life. Yeah.
So it's no big deal?
It's no big deal. It has been amended in other countries. We've had countries that have had more than 40 amendments, 50 amendments. So amending a constitution is part of the daily life of society.
Right. It's part of the daily life of any society, any given society, as it has happened everywhere or anywhere in the world. But if you can narrow it to a Rwandan context in this particular regard, you know, a lot of things are involved in these constitutional reforms, but top of it, which has been talked about by different other people, is the intersection of presidential and parliamentary elections. This is one of the things that raised a debate. You know, to you, what you're say about this? And as I said, narrowing it to a Rwandan context, how do you judge it in terms of the impact it's going to have?
Yes, I think it has been misreported. Some people were saying that it has been changed to extend the term of members of parliament.
Right.
But I think it has been changed instead to have the presidential elections and the parliamentary elections happen at the same time.
Right.
This has economic implications. It has economic implications because elections take a lot of resources.
Right.
So having elections, parliamentary elections and presidential elections at the same time, I think it is a cost-effective method for any society.
Exactly.
And we have had countries that have elections on the same day, and I think Rwandans have seen that this is the cost-effective approach.
Right, and still on these reforms, another issue that was raised, or that is in the pipeline, if I can call it that way, or part of this draft law amendment, include the issue of a public hearing that is going to be changed. Maybe Dr. Mulisa, what's your say on it?
Thank you. Public hearing, a fair and public hearing are principles. Constitutional principles, we understand that, but removing the concept in the Constitution does not take the concept away.
Right. Because
we have this in other laws, whether in the criminal procedure, whether in the law regulating procedures. So the concept of public hearing, because this is a public, this is a court process, it can always move to other laws. Then it doesn't cause any problem not having the concept in the Constitution. Right. And having it in another law. Why I think it has been moved to other laws is that whenever you want to regulate hearing, then you don't need to touch the Constitution.
Right.
Any process of hearing, any mode of public hearing, anything you need to introduce can be done through other laws other than amending the Constitution again. Yes.
And finally, another big issue, if I can say, or hot cake, the hierarchy of laws, right? That is going to be allowing different institutions to put in their respective laws, if I can call it that way. What's your take on it, and particularly commenting on impact it's going to have in the performance of different institutions, and what should we expect regarding this one?
I think this is more of a solution than a problem.
Right.
Because Article 95 of our Constitution has been providing hierarchy of the laws, having the Constitution, international instruments, organic laws, orders. So, but when you look at the provision was not providing for regulations.
Right.
And regulations are part of our laws. So having regulations part of our hierarchy, I think instead is filling the legal vacuum that we've been having regulations that our law has not been providing the hierarchy at which they fall. So I think this is filling the legal vacuum that we had previously.
Right, and I can ask or wonder, the fact that this has not been there and it's going to be added to the Rwandan constitutions, what were the void or the gaps that have been there in terms of the performance of different particular institutions?
Thank you very much. Let us say that RSB or any other institution brings a regulation in place.
Right.
That regulation is specific. So this would cause, in case there is another law contradicting that regulation, it would be quite hard to know the level at which that regulation is operating.
Right.
Yet it is a principle that the hierarchy of laws, in the hierarchy of laws, no law can contradict its superior law. So if you have regulations and you don't have at which level they're operating, then you can expect a contradiction, and if this contradiction comes in place, then you cannot locate its location within the hierarchy of laws. So having the regulations part of the hierarchy of laws will ensure us to know at which level they operate. So I think it has come to fill the vacuum.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mulisa, for your time.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move it ahead to other matters. The government of Rwanda has announced that none of the 70 Rwandans in Sudan got affected by the fighting that have continued to escalate in that country. Currently, there are Rwandans that have already been relocated and evacuated in Sudan's neighboring countries, including Djibouti. Ghislaine Mugwaneza reports.
338 foreigners, including some Rwandans living in Sudan, have been shifted from Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, due to an ongoing fighting between the government of Sudan and a paramilitary force. The government of Rwanda has said what is being done to save the lives of people living in Sudan.
uretse iyo mikoranire ya Minisiteri y'Ububanyi n'Amahanga na Ambasade ya Khartoum muri Sudani.
Except the collaboration between Rwandan Embassy in Sudan in partnership with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs International Cooperation. There's another cooperation between Khartoum Embassy and Egypt Embassy because some are not able to move using air transport. They're utilizing road transport and meet the Rwandan Embassy staffs at the Egypt border. They are there waiting for them and help them with their rest. There's partnership between countries including France, USA and UK that are able to utilize airplanes. There's Saudi Arabia that is using water transport. French people are helping in taking people to Djibouti. They are not taking them to France.
The Rwandans in Sudan are encouraged to follow the instructions given to them.
ndongera mbigarukeho ni ugukurikiza amabwiriza bari guhabwa kubera yuko nkuko nabikubwiye baravugana na ambasade.
I would emphasize on this. They are encouraged to follow the instructions being given to them because, as I've told you, they are in touch with the Rwandan embassy in Sudan. If they instruct them to remain behind, they should do that. If they instruct them to move, they are required to do that and go where they've been told. It is only following the instruction because the country is not at peace and one can easily be affected. The only thing to do is to follow the instructions and inform those looking after them in case you are stepping out, so that they won't keep searching for him or her while they have left.
Fighting erupted on April 15, 2023 in Sudan's capital and other cities between the army and RSF paramilitary force. To date, 420 people have been killed, while over 3,700 have been wounded. Nations are calling the Sudanese paramilitary Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese Armed Forces to restore calm and initiate a dialogue to resolve the current crisis. Ghislaine Mugwaneza, RTV News.
Those who closely follow the situation in the DRC believe that the East African forces in the eastern part of the country should be given enough time to help the Congolese put things back in the right order. But this should also put pressure on the Congolese government to find a lasting solution through political discussions.
5 months ago, the East African Community troops arrived in the DRC to help the country restore peace in their eastern province. The Kenyan army was the one that started before other countries in the region in November 2022. However, at the beginning of this year, the army of other countries, including Burundi, Uganda, and South Sudan, also entered the DRC to give their contribution. The lawyer, Gasominari Jean-Baptiste, closely monitors what is happening in the region and finds that after 5 months, these armed forces have already done a good job, so they should be extended.
Bashoboye gufata ibice cyangwa ibyahoze ari ibirindiro by'umutwe wa M23.
They were able to take the former M23 bases and ask them to leave their bases to see how they are doing when it comes to discussions. In fact, in the short time, they have been there, especially with the Kenyans, Army, and South Sudan. They have deployed them from places like Sake, Karuba, Kirorerwe, and Kichanga. You see the Kenyan Army from Kibumbo, there to Bunangana and Ruchuru. They had more time in their country. They will do more good things because we all know what they were able to do in a short time.
During his last visit to Rwanda, at the beginning of April, President William Ruto also said that the activities of the East African community in the DRC are starting to bear fruit.
The good news, the positive news, is that the last 1 month has seen a lot of positive development around the challenge of security in Eastern DRC. we now have, joining the Kenyan forces that have been there for the last almost 5-6 months, Burundi have now come in, Uganda have now come in, and forces also possibly from Angola have come to support the whole effort of stabilizing Eastern DRC.
This was also confirmed by the President Paul Kagame, who only added that more needs to be done.
I think in the last few weeks we see some progress, much as there are still other issues to resolve, but progress is nonetheless there. We just need to do more and register more progress toward a solution.
What worries is that until now, the Kinshasa regime has rejected political discussions, and that is what had to follow after M23 left the areas it had occupied and left them to the East African Community Forces. A researcher and a teacher at the university, Professor Tombola Gustave, finds that the DRC government should be pressured to accept the talks because that would provide a lasting solution.
Otherwise, the war will end and the refugees will return home as a matter of M23, all of which will be discussed in political discussions, but President Tshisekedi is as if he does not want to comply. A new country in East African community does not hesitate to accept what the community believes.
The decision to send regional troops to the DRC was taken by the East African Community Heads of State in June 2022. These troops have been tasked with going to the areas occupied by the M23 to start political discussion as a response. The issue is still ongoing, but so far, this discussion has not been taken place because the government had refused to talk with the M23, which they call terrorist group. Jessica Agasaro, RwandaTV News.
On Tuesday, 25th of April 2023, delegates from different parts of the world, mostly from African countries, will arrive in Zimbabwe to attend the 6th Transform Africa Summit. Launched in Rwanda in 2013, the initiative has had a big impact on various technology-related projects in Rwanda. Betty Mutani with more.
Zerabytes African Limited is a robotics company that was launched in 2018. MultiRobot was the first robot launched by the company to be used in teaching children about technology, while other robots were later used in fighting against the spread of COVID-19. Its chief executive officer, Benjamin Karenzi, notes that Transform Africa helped them to make a very big step where they currently work in different areas of education, health, and more.
We launched our first robot in 2019 during the Transform Africa Summit. And it's exciting to see the journey from 2019 to date as a company and also self. We have grown from one small robot to almost 17 different types of robots, and to more advanced robots as well. And also, as we speak today, in coming days, we are going to be launching the Kigali Roboterium hub. This is going to be like a museum of robots, where researchers, innovators will come to test their research, their thinking, their creativity, and also, most importantly, to expose Rwanda and other African communities.
Arise Hijiro, project director in charge of smart cities in the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, says that there are projects that are operating in Rwanda following the impact of Transform Africa.
We've done a project called Smart Waste Management, where we've deployed smart bins across different parts of the city, and these bins are segregated by waste type, and they're also fitted with IoT sensors, and these give data on real-time fill levels. On also over time, they tell us the amounts of waste collected at each site and the trends that we're able to then use to reformulate or even inform the strategies that we're making in waste management.
Sarah Rukundo, the country manager of Westwell, a startup hub that currently operating in 3 African countries, highlighted some of the expectations from the upcoming summit.
we've seen tremendous growth from the Transform Africa that took place in the past years in Rwanda, and we're very excited to see the untapped players that the Zimbabwe ecosystem can bring to us in terms of more opportunities for our entrepreneurs, but also different stakeholders that enable our entrepreneurs to grow in Rwanda. So I'm very excited about that.
It's exciting, and I'm pretty sure that as we look forward for the upcoming Transform Africa Summit this week, there will be more entrepreneurs and innovative young people that will be showcasing different technologies.
Transform Africa has a goal of making sure that more than 650 million people will have digital literacy by 2030.
Or digital skills on the continent, beyond just talking about policy, how do we actually do practical things like enhancing the skills of the people on the continent? And then there are other initiatives that we are partnering with them on, such as digital health, increasing and enhancing service delivery in the health sector, not only in Rwanda but regionally, to see how do we actually, in Rwanda's context or in Africa's context, how do we formulate regulations that really enhance digital health on the continent.
The Transform Africa Summit will bring together more than 3,000 delegates ranging from heads of states and governments, private sector practitioners, and other representatives of various institutions from all over the world, mostly from African continent, will take place from 26th to 28th April 2023 under the theme Connect, Innovate and Transform. Betty Mutoni, RwandaTV News.
Some of those who rent commercial buildings in Kigali City demonstrate that the reduction on immovable properties tax will contribute in reducing rental prices as well as prices for the commodities that they sell. Shina Teta with more.
While explaining about the matter, some business people in Kigali demonstrate that rental prices continue to increase day by day depending on where the house is located.
These days, house owners are increasing rental fees, claiming that it is because of the current tax rate, where rental fees now vary from 800,000 Rwandan francs to 1 million Rwandan francs, depending on the size of the house.
Among the resolutions of the Cabinet meeting on 21st April 2023 include amendments in the taxes paid on immovable properties and residential land, where the price will be deducted from 300 Rwandan francs per meter squared to 80 Rwandan francs. The house and land tax combined will yield a tax payment of 0.5% of the combined market value of the house and land, down from 1%. For commercial buildings, there will be a decrease in tax from 0.5% to 0.3% of the market value. Some of the business persons in rental shops say that amendments in tax payment might lead to deduction of rental costs as well as the prices of the sold commodities. It would be such a good thing, especially for us who are on the field, because it becomes much easier, not only for us but also our clients, who would then buy products at a lower price. Addressing the issue, the Private Sector Federation spokesperson Mr. Walter Rwegesahunde emphasizes that the amendments in tax payments are in favor of the private sector in the view of the fact that discussions with private sector representatives are held in advance.
We have been indicating changes in regards to tax payment in the private sector, and the greater tax base, the more challenges faced. Therefore, raising concerns indicates a good step forward.
According to Rwanda Revenue Authority, a study was conducted ahead of time with an aim to improve tax collection and will be implemented soon. It is clear that there has been a study prior to the adjustments and presented to the Ministry of Finance. Our role as Rwanda Revenue Authority is to implement what has been approved. Following the tax adjustments that were approved during the Council of Ministers upon presidential orders, it is foreseen that after it has been presented and approved by the Legislative Assembly, will later be put in the Government Gazette and take effect. Shina Teta, RTV News.
And on behalf of the entire news as well as the technical team that made it happen, many thanks for being with us on this edition of Rwanda Television News. Up until next time, stay safe and have a great week ahead. Goodbye.